Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kingnusmi. Normally I talk about TV shows and movies and on here. Can't say the first minute. I just said it twice. That's fun. But today I decided to do something a little different. Decided to slow things down. I asked you guys to send me some of your scariest experiences ever, whether it's paranormal or not. And you guys delivered. Like, I got over 100 comments. So I chose a couple at random. Legit, I had so many. I just scrolled through and picked a few. And if I saw somebody that I did know personally, I'm sorry, I did choose their story because I'm kind of interested to see what they said. But there was 150 plus of you guys. So I won't get to do every comment in this video, very sadly. If this video does well, or if I have fun doing this, I'll definitely do another one. So just don't get discouraged if your comment is not in this video. I'll probably do this again if I have fun and if you guys like it. There is no possible way I can get through 150 in just one video. I guess I could, but that would take literally forever. I changed vibes so fast. I was going, hello, welcome to, hey, what's up guys? You know, we're good, we're chilling, we're cracking. So yeah, let's quit yapping and get into it. Buskirk50 has two stories for us today. The first one says, I was home alone and I kept hearing a kid's laughter ever so faintly. Turns out it was a toy my niece left on with the volume on low. Oh, mystery solved. Okay. First one wasn't that scary. Starting with bangers, actually. We're starting with bangers. Okay, second story goes, I was home alone again, and I went upstairs to get my phone charger. My room was at the end of the hall, and as I walked towards my room, I noticed all the doors upstairs were closed, even the bathroom. After I grabbed my charger, I head back down the stairs, and about halfway down them, I realized I didn't have the block to plug into the wall. And when I turned around, I saw the bathroom door was wide open. When I got to the top of the steps, I'd noticed that every door was wide open, even mine. And I know I always close my door. I got back to the living room, and as soon as I sat down, all three of my dogs all just started to growl and slowly walked to the empty corner of the room. Ooh. Okay, the second one was good. Second one, you got me with the second one. I've never had an experience like that where it's like, you know, things open it. Well, I have had experiences where a door was opening, but I've never like walked upstairs and like a door was closed and then I walked back downstairs a little bit and I was like, oh shit, I forgot something. Walked back upstairs and then all the doors were open. I've never had something like that happen. That's insane. That's like horror movie shit. But the dog stuff, that does freak me out. Pretty good stories. Thank Buskirk. That's how your name right? Buskirk? Is it Buskirk or Buskirk? Okay, this next story comes from Cinema Chick or Cinema Chic. I don't know. I can't really tell. There's no K. If there was a K, that'd be easier. Their story goes, when I was little, my dad took my brother and I to Disney World. This was back in the late 80s, I believe. We went on Space Mountain for the first time. The seats were singular row style, up to 3 seats per car. My brother was in the front, my dad was in the back, and me in the middle. I was pretty small, but they let me on. Can't remember if there was a height requirement at the time. As I recall, they didn't have an overhead harness, but instead just a lap bar. I think Space Mountain still just has like a lap bar. Yeah, even the newer ones, it's just a lap bar. I mean, that roller coaster really isn't that crazy, so I guess a lap bar would be enough. As the ride zoomed around in the dark, it was incredibly fast and herky-jerky. That's a funny word, herky-jerky. At one point, our cart jolted sideways and I felt myself slipping out. Like I said, I was small and the lap bar didn't go down far enough to secure me into the seat. Thank goodness my dad noticed. I felt his hand squeezing my shoulders as he tried to keep me in my seat. I never went back on the ride until they refurbished it several years back. Funnily enough, I found the new version boring. I have a couple of pics from that trip, and this is the only memory I have from that day. That is pretty freaky. I've had kind of a similar experience. Six Flags over Georgia. There was a ride. What is this ride called? The Scorcher? The Georgia Scorcher? So in the Georgia Scorcher, you're standing on the ride, and then you just strap in, you know? You're supposed to kind of crouch a little bit, but me being a 14-year-old and stupid, I decided it'd be funny if I like jumped up a little bit whenever it locked, and in me jumping as it locked, it didn't lock. I wasn't moving all up and down like rapidly, you know, but I was moving up and down a little bit, enough to scare the shit out of me. So I never did that again. I was like, yeah, let's respect the rules of these establishments. I think I just had it in between two of the like the lock things maybe. I don't know what happened, but I was moving up and down a lot. Like you could hear like ching, 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 ching. Hated it. I hated it. So I kind of had a similar experience. Luckily, it's just Space Mountain. I mean, you'd probably get hit by another train car as quickly as you fell, so at least it'd be quick. That was so dark. I'm sorry about that. All right, this next one comes from It's Just Skills. One night, I was coming back from a field trip and was really tired, and I had to put on Goosebumps Night of the Living Dummy audiobook to help me sleep. Then at 1 or 2 a.m., I am in the bed, and I wake up to see a shadow-looking figure in front of me on the edge of my bed. I ran fast into the living room, and then I accidentally stubbed my toe on the trash can, and I tumble, but get back up, and slept on the couch for the next 2 days. days. The next morning, I realized it was just my guitar case, and my parents will never let me forget that moment. Oh, one of those moments as a kid where like the laundry chair kind of looks a little suspicious. I had plenty of those, especially when you have like a messy room. Things start... whoa. Especially if you have like a messy room as a kid, like a lot of dirty laundry or toys everywhere, you start seeing things at night and you could swear like your toys are moving, or like I said, the laundry on the chair looks a little suspicious. Looks more like a ghost girl the more you look at it. I think it's awesome that you're listening to not a Living Dummy audiobook though. All right, great story. It's just skills. I like that one a lot. All right, this next one comes from Zachary Benson 6214. All right, this is a combination of several occurrences at my old job, but here we go. It was some point in the fall of my first year working at this local store in my hometown when me and a cashier felt like we were being watched. It was closing time, so there was no customers in the store, and we were waiting for the go-ahead from our boss. We looked at each other and I asked the cashier, we'll call her Carol, "Hey, you know the feeling of being watched?" Carol, "Yeah, I feel it too. It feels like it's coming from over there." She then points to the clothing department that had a pile of boots stacked up looking like a wall of some kind. And as she pointed, a shadowy figure ducked behind the wall of boxes. Freaked us both out. But the weird part is, the shadow looked like it had on a cowboy hat. So we started to call it Cowboy. Naturally. I would have called it Arthur Morgan. Hey, Arthur. Arthur. How good is my Dutch? Is that a good Dutch? I feel like that's not good Dutch. Anyways, a few months go by. Had a handful of occurrences. Jars falling off shelves, frames and nails falling out of walls. The feeling of being watched, that sort of thing. Well, we have a sort of storage space / attic where we keep the clothes that went out of season and some mannequins and racks. Well, the boss asks me to put some boxes up there. So I do. I turn on the light and the first thing I saw was a black cowboy hat on one of the coat racks, of course. So half joking and regrettably, mockingly, I say, "Oh, it's you!" And I swear on my grandfather's grave, I heard a whistle from one corner of the room and a mannequin's arm falling off on the other side of the room. Man, bro hit you with a double whammy. He said, "Oh, you gonna mock me? Okay, game time." Needless to say, I ran, barely keeping myself from tripping. The last time anyone saw anything from Cowboy was after an old friend went to work in the warehouse. We'll call this guy Josh. Me and Carol told him about Cowboy. And obviously Josh thought we were making all of it up and we were just trying to scare the new guy. That was until a few weeks later at closing when he ran into the store, looked at me, and ran without clocking out. Apparently, Josh was locking up the back when he looked into the doorway and he saw a faceless figure with a black hat peeking in and ducking away as soon as he saw it. That's when Josh ran out. I don't blame the guy. I would too. Any kind of shadow figure, I'm fucking sprinting out of whatever I see. Now, another one is sort of one-off incident that happened during a Christmas rush. And some context for this: one, I was already stressed out that day and my grandfather, who was alive at the time, had been diagnosed with cancer the month before. On top of it, obviously being Christmas, and if you work retail, you know it's practically a frozen heart hell during that time. And two, I enjoy OST music, especially video game OSTs. So I memorized one that I was just humming, and I hum it to calm myself down during stressful situations. Anyways, I was bagging clothes and stuff for folks, one after the other, over and over, with barely any time to breathe. Well, obviously I was getting stressed out a bit and didn't have time to stop and calm myself. And as I felt like breaking down and crying, someone grabbed my shoulder and started humming in this soft, soothing voice. But the tune she was humming was that same song I hum. And before I had time to think, my shoulder got yanked back, making me hit the tobacco shelf behind me. I looked around, no one was behind me. The only ladies near me was the customer in front of the counter, and my boss was also in front of me, looking at me, asking why I hit the shelf. I still don't know what or who that voice was, or how they knew the song, but it was so peaceful in that moment. I work someplace else now, away from whatever those things were. I barely go back. But yeah, those were my stories of my time at a local general store. Eerie. Hated that. But yeah, I haven't had an experience like this before. That's insane. That's crazy. I wonder if the old general store was a saloon. It was this part of the cowboy's town. Now you're in his turf and he don't like it. Thanks for the great story, Zachary Benson. I really like that one. That was nice. I did grab some longer ones because I felt like I needed to. I feel like the longer ones people put more work into rather than some of people that were just like, yeah, I like saw a guy at the edge of my bed one time. True story. The next story comes from Creature Seamstress. I worked at a Spirit Halloween back in high school, and at closing we had to go around and unplug all the animatronics / set pieces. It was my last night working there, November 1st, obviously, and one of the animatronics had been making a high-pitched tick noise sporadically throughout my shift. It was called Abandoned Annie and was meant to be a possessed doll with a face that split open into a big, jagged mouth. What the hell? I'm gonna look this up. Oh my god! What the hell? Holy shit, this is creepy. Kind of like that. I want an abandoned Annie. I'm gonna put it right here. I'm gonna put her up there with my on-air sign. You can make like a horror movie with this fucking doll. Anyways, I need to get back to reading. My coworker and I went around to unplug everything while our manager went to the back. The music was turned off, which made everything 1,000 times scarier with the silence. But Annie kept making that squealing noise. We thought that maybe her voice box was skipping because she didn't make any of her voice lines when we activated the step pad. Everything on that set was connected to a couple of power strips, so all the other displays were powered off at the same time. However, Annie kept squeaking. She didn't use any batteries, so there shouldn't have been any other power that she could have drawn from. After a minute or two of her making that noise, my coworker physically unplugged Annie's cord from the power strip, but she kept squeaking. I removed her power cord from her back and disconnected her from the step pad, but she still kept squeaking. Because both my coworker and I were sleep-deprived high schoolers, we figured that increasing her volume might get rid of any remaining power out of her system. This is an insane way of thinking. I wouldn't have thought about that. So I turned up the little dial on her back, and as I turned the dial, Annie's chirp turned into a continuous growl that got lower as the volume increased. It lasted for a minute before I turned off the volume and quickly stepped away. My coworker and I tried to finish up the rest of closing as fast as we could because it was creepy as hell. And neither of us wanted to deal with the possessed animatronic in our last 15 minutes of working there. I don't know if anyone ever plugged all of her cords the next day, but I remember staying far away from her when I went back. Also, even though Annie's whole shtick was demon-possessed abandoned doll, none of her voice lines ever went down multiple octaves. Honestly, I don't think many people interacted with her step pad, so it wasn't a result of overuse. Anyways, I find it really funny that the closest thing I have to a supernatural experience happened in a Spirit Halloween. I mean, have you seen the movie? I haven't. I heard it's horrible. It's pretty creepy. I had a feeling it was going to take like a FNAF animatronic haunted kind of thing going. I do think that sometimes robots are terrifying. I think they're scarier than most supernatural things because they're like actually tangible and they can do creepy things sometimes. Like if a child's toy just starts going off randomly, creepiest shit ever. Because most of the time it's like a little girl laughing and it's like, where is that coming from? Like the first story, where's that coming from? Why is it in my house? What are we doing? What are we doing here? But also it's kind of like the scary doll kind of trope, and robots, they actually move on their own. So, and that doll is terrifying to look at. I'm sure I put up a picture for this video, but that doll is horrifying. So I would probably stay away from it too. I'm not gonna lie. But it probably was just some kind of, robotic thing that was wrong with it. Doesn't mean it makes it less creepy, but that's probably all that was wrong with it. All right, this next one comes from my guy, SimplyColin. This is the Nepo pick I chose because I was like, whoa, Colin said something? Hell yeah, let's go. Also, check out his YouTube channel. He makes amazing content. Okay, so roughly a year ago, I can get him to say this. Maybe I should get him to say this. If it's not his voice in the next, little bit. He said no, and he hates me.
Okay, so roughly a year ago, I spent a couple days staying over at my girlfriend's place. And when I returned back to my place, one of my roommates asked, "What were you laughing at last night?" Confused and perplexed, I asked him what he meant. Apparently, the night before I returned home, he heard somebody laughing really hard in the living room as he was trying to sleep, and he just assumed it was me. I explained to him that I haven't been home in a couple days, and all is good, because we lived with two other roommates, so it was bound to be one of them. Well, later that day, the other two roommates were home, and when questioned, it turns out that neither of them were home that night as well. Meaning, the original roommate who heard the loud laughing was actually just home alone. This situation was kind of scary for all of us, but more so him than anyone else. To this day, we never figured out what he actually heard that night. We had working theories, but none of them seemed to pan out. And the more we theorized, the more scared that one particular roommate would get. After a week or two, nobody cared anymore. Plus, we had like 3 months left on the lease, so if it was a ghost or whatever, it almost didn't matter because we'd all be gone soon enough. Alright, cool. I think that's it. Hey, you think we're gonna get any subs from this little cameo appearance?
Bruh, I don't know. You wanna go get some tacos now or what?
No, yeah, let's go. I'm starving.
That's creepy. I've had stuff like that happen to me. Actually, me and my friend, don't do this. This is hooligan shit, and you should not do this. We were going into abandoned buildings. There's an abandoned middle school somewhere near my hometown, and we would just go in there and, hang out, mess around, look at stuff. I was super interested in urban exploration because of Sam and Colby, actually. I thought it was really cool. I liked seeing how things were just like frozen in time, but it's incredibly dangerous because there's homeless people and scary people that stay there sometimes. And this particular visit is a group of us, and me and one of my friends, one of my best best friends, we were walking into the school and we both heard a little girl laugh. And I know it was both of us because we both looked at each other and then looked around. And then I said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "That laugh?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah." And then we asked the rest of the group. Nobody else heard it. Just me and him. And we were beside each other. So it sounded like it was like faint, like far away, but like it was kind of creeping me out now thinking of that. Maybe it was like right here beside both of us. That's actually creeping me out. I should probably not talk about that or think about that. I'm gonna stay up really late tonight thinking about that actually. Great story, Colin. That's eerie as hell. We've all lived in a haunted place. Come on. All right, this next comment comes from Cosplay Craze Cass. Mine was a dream, a nightmare, if you will. You stopped posting. It gave me a chill. That is the most horrifying story I've ever read in my life. That trucks all of them. Now, of course, I had to put a goofy one in here. I had to lighten the mood, especially after that creepy one I just talked about. Now I'm thinking about that little girl laughing in my ear. All right, the next one, it's also kind of a Nepo baby pick. This is from my guy, Horrorlander. He talks about Goosebump stuff, Haunting Hour stuff. He talks about the books, and he's way better about explaining it than I am. He's actually a really funny guy. You should definitely check him out and give him some love as well. Both underrated YouTubers. I know you guys say I'm an underrated YouTuber. These guys are underrated YouTubers.
Yo, people and patrons of the night, it is your boy, the Horrorlander. Now, to give you guys a good personal horror story, it's probably better that you guys get it from the source, and I'm gonna need to provide some much needed context for everybody that's listening. So basically, my first job was me working at a glorified motel a couple of years ago, and this place was absolutely batshit crazy. I mean, this place was basically an unreleased GTA game. And let me just go over a few of the things that happened to me while I used to work here. First, 4 cops that ended up breaking into the place and basically ran up to the 2nd floor of the hotel because there was a prostitute offering illegal services up there. And she had actually ended up jumping out of the 2nd story window, topless, throwing cocaine into the grass. And the officer that had caught her had me basically identify her by looking at her prostitution advertisements. And I had to look at her in the canine position. Yeah, that's how he got his ID. And let's just say, it was the best identification I ever did in my life. There was a couple who ended up staying in a room and they ended up basically keeping a living room worth of stolen goods from Walmart's and ended up getting evicted by the police. There was a guy with a murder charge who ended up getting banned from the hotel after, well, you know, he got caught. There was a guest who left their gun in the room and then called asking if they could pick it up. I'm just gonna say it, man, ain't nobody could deny that man to get his strap. There was a couple who came in one night with a stolen baby. Yes, I just said that. You can't make this shit up. And the hotel used to rent out the 2nd floor entirely to swinger parties that used to come and perform on horrific and absolutely visually terrible scales. I mean, the elevators were even victims to this behavior. Did I also forget to mention that the laundry room happened to be haunted by a ghost because the motion sensor used to go off when nobody was in there? Listen, man, this place was straight off a Tales from the Crypt set. I don't know what to tell y'all. So basically one evening during the winter, and during the winter times, the hotel used to be pretty much empty. I had used to work the evening shifts when maintenance, housekeeping, and other staff members would not be available. So essentially I had the whole building to myself and the few guests that were staying in there. With that, there was a situation that my coworkers had informed me about, that essentially there was a guest whose credit card was declining and he had to come down, basically extend his night and give in a new credit card, but he was not answering the phone and he had a do not disturb sign on his door. So housekeeping was not able to go in and nobody had really checked up on him to see if he was still in the room. So it was assumed that he basically kind of ran out of the room before he could pay and got away with free nights. I did call a few times during my shift, but I'm not allowed to leave the front desk since I am the only person in the building, so I kind of just had to let it go and let it slide. That was until the night audit person came in to replace me, and they had told me that I could bring up a program key card and basically lock out the room to make sure that nobody would be able to get out. But I had assumed that nobody was in the room, so as I went up to the 3rd floor, which again was pretty much empty during the winter time, I wanted to knock on the door and just basically confirm that nobody was in there, go in there, check, and basically let the night audit person know. So basically I went up to the door, I knocked a few times, and I announced that it was front desk. I had my uniform on, I had my name tag, so there'd be no mistaking that I was part of the employee team. And again, the building was empty, it was old, real quiet, you didn't really expect anybody to be around even within that vicinity. So that's why it came as a shock to me when I had actually heard somebody get off the bed as I heard the bed spring slowly adjust. and I heard footsteps coming towards the front door. I expected that person to basically open up the door and kind of act dumb, kind of act like they weren't getting phone calls, maybe act like they didn't know that they had to extend. So I was a little shocked when nobody had opened up the door. I figured that they had probably moved away. So what I did was I ended up knocking a few more times, and I was around there for probably 3 to 4 minutes just kind of waiting before I decided, you know what, maybe I'll go back down. That was until I picked up on something slightly weird 2 minutes in, which was essentially I would hear these periodic knocks. A little bit more slight than that, but essentially I was hearing knocks up against the door, and I was almost a little bit confused. I was like, what is making these noises, and why are they not opening the door? And eventually I had heard a slight knock towards the center of the door, right where that peephole was, and that's when I realized that the person who was inside of the room had been leaning up against the door and watching me through the peephole for 3 to 4 minutes without opening, without making a sound, although clearly I had heard the bed springs and knew that there was footsteps coming up there. So that's when I started getting really nervous, because I'd realized that the person might just be watching me for God knows how long if I keep standing here. They might open up the door and try to grab me. They might try to do something, because I knew the type of clientele that stayed at this hotel. And that's when I basically decided to speed run it out of there, haul my ass out of there, and get to the staircase and go down. I didn't even wait for the elevator in case they would open it up as soon as I walked away. But luckily nobody did open it up. I managed to get down to the front desk. I told the night audit, and they'd called the police. But since the night audit could probably tell that I was a little spooked and scared, they basically told me to go home before the police came. So I left the building once the cops started coming in, and I never did follow up about what exactly happened. And that's when survival instinct kicked in first, baby. Listen, I knew rule number 1, all right? I knew that by reading so many horror stories and watching so many horror movies, that the brown guy always gets clapped first, and it was not my time, baby. No siree, all right? I got unpaid bills at that time. I had backing child support payments. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe going out the other way might have been better. I probably should have walked back to his room. And of course, I gotta give a lesson to y'all, alright? The moral and ethical thing to do in any of these situations is to always leave that shit for the next shift, man. Listen, baby, once I'm out of there, it's your problem, bitch. Just want to give a big shout out to Kingnusmi. Thank you so much for having me on your channel and appearing in one of these videos. It is a blessing. And thank you for having me tell this personal story. And of course, if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed to Kingnusmi, well, listen here, buddy. Yeah, that's right. I took you outside. I teleported you out here, bro. Goku style. Instant transmission. You better hit that subscribe button. You better hit that like button. And you better comment down below. All right? That's all I got for today. Deuces.
That's insane. I hate the idea of somebody looking at you, like watching you without you knowing it. I also hate the little peephole things, the reverse ones. Do you guys know about those? Those exist. People can use something, put it up to your peephole and see inside your building. Usually they're designed to where people can't look inside your house or whatever, your apartment, but they have some that reverse it, that like negate that effect, and they can see clearly through your thing. Creeps, bro. Weirdos out there. But yeah, just imagining like you're trying to get this guy's attention and then he's like just watching you through the peephole. Probably doing drugs in there. Probably doing hard drugs, and he didn't want you to come in. Oh, it's a good story. Good story, my guy. We have a lot of good stories today. I think this is another really long one. Yep. Oh, this is the last one, guys. No. Pretty long one, but it comes from a commenter named Dreamworld1372. When I was 12 or 13, I was the once a month babysitter for a family when they went to go to dinner and a movie. The kids were 4 and 6. So they say that this was before door cameras were invented, and it was the early 2000s and also winter, so it got dark really early. One time when I got there, the parents took me aside and said that their daughter, the 6-year-old, had been having a problem where someone had started throwing rocks at her window in the middle of the night. It wasn't her imagining it, since her parents caught it happening and were planning to switch her bedroom. They warned me that she may be too scared to go to sleep until they were home, and if that happened, she was allowed to stay up with me. So I was a bit on edge at first, but then I'd figured we'd be downstairs the whole time, and even if something happened, we wouldn't know. Around 7-ish, someone comes and starts knocking and ringing the doorbell in a pattern. Can't remember the pattern, but it was basically, imagine like knocking 5 times and ringing the doorbell 3. Knocking 3, doorbell 2, something like that. And of course, I'm scared, especially after being warned that someone's been messing with the house. So I asked the kids if maybe they have a secret knock with their family or friends across the street. Nope. On top of that, it was one of those doors that doesn't have a peephole and only has big windows on the side of the door, and I had the blinds closed, so I had no way to see them. I took the kids to the back room of the house, and after what felt like forever, it stopped. I figured we were good, and it was my policy to not open the door while babysitting unless told otherwise. They said anyways, but they meant otherwise. Grammar check. Exactly an hour later, it happens again. Exact same pattern. In my head, though, it's probably just some teens messing with us. We were next to a park and an alley, so the area around the house was very dark. Perfect prank house, since you can just immediately escape into the dark. And I didn't want to bother the family or the police with just a prank. You should call the police if something like this is happening, by the way. Yeah, even if it's like somebody pulling a prank on you, knocking on your door, ringing your doorbell, that's fine. If it's scaring you, call the cops. They'll tell them to stop, or they'll look around maybe a little bit to try and make you feel better about what's going on. Don't just be like, I didn't want to bother anybody. You can call the cops. We pay them. They work for us. Well, I guess as a kid, you don't really pay them. You don't pay taxes, but neither do I. That was just a joke. IRS, I do pay my taxes, and I am going to be doing it very soon, I promise. When it happened the third time, exactly the same pattern again, I took the kids and the phone into the back room and told them that I was going to try and see who it was. And if I yelled, they had to go hide in the backyard and call 911. When I tell you my adrenaline was rushing, I was ready for a fight. I felt like whoever it was pounding on the door so loud. I just couldn't see through the blinds and didn't want to open the door. I was not an imposing 12-year-old. I don't think any 12-year-old is. So I was just standing there thinking they were going to break a window next and making my plan if they did. Fully planning to buy the kids as much time as I can. And they kept repeating the pattern and pausing and repeating. Thank goodness they finally stopped. The parents came back not too long after and I told them what happened. I have no idea if they knew who it was or if it was related to the girl's window. I know at the time the area was a spot where they could get drugs. Nothing too crazy, mostly weed, but before it was legal, that was a lot rougher. So was it a mistaken identity thing? Someone got the wrong house? Did it have to do with the parents' jobs? Was some creep after the daughter? It feels like a big commitment for a prank, but also teens get bored and it could have easily been some 15-year-old jerk. If they ever found out, I wasn't told, and it never happened again while I was there. Not the most satisfying end to a story. Scared me bad though. I refuse to live anywhere without a peephole. It's kind of crazy. We got barely any paranormal stories in this video. But no, that's terrifying. People are scarier than ghosts. I fully believe that. That's like one thing that I can agree on. Sure, ghosts are scary in like a more, supernatural sense, I guess. You don't really see ghosts, so it's kind of scary when things move around. But ghosts might not exist. I don't know. I'm kind of a skeptic myself. But people are real. And people are scary, and people will do crazy things just to feel alive. So yeah, it might have been just like a mistaken, like some dude trying to get some weed, and he's like, yeah, use this knock my door 5 times, ring the doorbell 3 times. I know it's you. But yeah, that's terrifying. That's horrifying. That kind of reminds me of what is it? The old Mr. Nightmare stories. That's like a Mr. Nightmare ass story right there. Except for in the Mr. Nightmare story, the dude would have like peeked in your window and be like, I'm gonna kill you. Great story. Great story. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That sounds horrifying. But yeah, that's all the stories I have for you guys today. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing this. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see another video like this. Me just reading some scary stories from you guys. I guess one day I could do a video talking about my scariest experiences, but you guys don't care about that, right? I have a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus videos a day early, maybe some pictures of my cats, a Discord server, also your name right here on screen. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.